back.
Yeah, we're having new equipment. Sorry, I'm like just testing out the equipment. I hope that everyone can hear us and still hear the music softly in the background. But we're in our new studio, so which is crazy. We finally have a space for all of us to be in. There we go. Now I can fully hear us. Yeah. So big thanks to my grandparents and guys. Look at the camera. Remember?
We know that from
I'm here.
Yeah.
Thanks, to my family, to my grandparents. They're letting us use this space. We have lights. There's still details that we got.
It's a work in progress, but yeah.
But we got the Rodecaster Pro. We have Chad's equipment. I'm sounding a little bit metallic, so I'm gonna move the mic a little bit away from you now. But it's fun. I mean, what do you guys think about the space?
Absolutely amazing. I love it.
And we have a beautiful equipment, like we were saying. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm
top
really
of the line for what we can get. Top of the line for what we can get.
Exactly. So, I'm super excited for this, but
it's been a long time in the making trying to get us all here.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So we have a few different things going on today.
Yeah.
We have Chad and Matt here today, and then in a little bit we're gonna actually go to a little break, and when we come back, it'll actually just be Chris and me kind of talking about this, right? So today's topic is global warming. Mm-hmm. Okay, and we do have a little bit of an announcement towards the end, but I'll make it once you guys are here too.
Okay.
But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. You guys ready to talk about some kind of serious stuff? But I mean, it's a topic in our society, and I think we should talk about it.
You know me, I was born for this.
All right. Well,
you've heard it from DJ Wills, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you guys are ready.
I wasn't actually born for this. I'm just prepping myself.
So, global warming. That's a big kind of topic in our society right now, in the world, and there's a lot of kind of things going on. Whether that be the sea surface temperature warming up, whether that be ocean acidification because of that, whether it be just
melting of the polar ice caps,
melting of the polar ice caps, and sea level rising as well. So many things, both ecological and just our environment kind of heating up.
Yeah.
So again, we're not experts at all. I'm gonna be the kind of faux expert today, just because I am a bio minor and taken some marine bio comparative physiology classes and ecology stuff. So I should be a little bit more well versed in this stuff, but again, by no means are we experts at all. I'm a student. We're just students.
We're all students.
That's all we are.
Really, the point is of this podcast is just kind of what we said for the mental health episode is, we're doing the best we can, and we're trying to start a conversation, right? And while we're not experts, the point is kind of like that Jimmy Fallon sketch, right? Of like picking someone off the street in Hollywood.
Yeah.
What a regular American would kind of talk about this stuff. And so that's really the point of this stuff. So we're just trying to start a conversation and doing the best we can. We have tried to get some talking points here and some facts, but hopefully this is just a conversation starter. Okay? All right. So with that kind of being dealt with, the kind of first question to talk about is, when someone says global warming, what kind of comes to your mind? Or why don't we start with Matt?
Yeah.
My first thought is, I don't know why it is, but it's gasoline, They say a lot of the gasoline is a direct cause that's causing it, and coming from someone who loves cars, that's a bit of an issue, but at the same time, I know where it comes from because I know how gasoline is processed,
Right.
It goes through a huge vat of chemical, processing, and I can see where that damages it, but then there's a lot of different other substitutes. It's not just gasoline that's doing it, there's a lot of other factors, factories, pollution, it all adds up.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
the first thing that comes to mind, we said this earlier, it's the polar ice caps.
Right.
And I feel like that's really important to be aware of now, because I feel like with the sea level rising, and like the polar bears, it's hard. So that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think about it.
Yeah, so I mean, we touched on a few different things, but let's go back to Matt's point kind of here is, so pollution, in the sense of like whether it be from manufacturers, refineries, whatever the case may be, what is actually getting sent up into the atmosphere is damaging. So let's talk about that for a second, right? So kind of as a whole, what is kind of happening? And one of those maybe big thing that you guys have heard of is those greenhouse gases, right? So what is that, right? So that's like methane, carbon dioxide, and quite a few others that I'm not going to name right now, but that stuff
there's
gets
just
released.
A huge long list.
Oh, of course, yeah. That stuff gets released into the atmosphere, and gets trapped in our atmosphere, right? And then it just gets trapped, and so when the sunlight, it actually starts heating up our atmosphere and the rest of, just the air temperature and everything like that. So that's the main kind of like process that I would say, at least that I've learned, that's kind of contributing to global warming. And so what is global warming? Really, it's an increase in climatic heat, right? A change in that.
Yeah.
So, and not for the better. I'm probably going to bring this up a few different times during the episode, but and again, this is not a lecture, so I'm not going to put up a slide here.
We're not professors here.
Yeah, so we're not going to bore you for the next.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun with this one.
But there's a slide that both actually my comparative physiology teacher and my marine bio teacher have showed me, and it's like, since like the late early 1800s, like the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah,
that's when.
Ever since then, I mean, it's been like rising, but ever since then, it's just like boom, like just like an upshoot. It's the craziest grain. I'm not gonna show you here, but like
that happened after the 1900s, right?
I'm sorry.
1900s.
Yeah, but I mean, like it started like late 1800s, right?
Yeah.
Revolution, everything like that. But I mean, just a huge increase in the release of carbon dioxide. That's absolutely insane. And so, like one kind of like argument to this is like, well, the ice age we're still in an ice age, right now. They think this is natural, and that's very much true.
This is not relevant to the movie Ice Age. Just pointing.
Very true.
Yeah.
There's no way is that historically accurate for us.
But it's crazy the increase in just in over 100 years.
Right.
It's just absolutely insane.
It's like exponentially getting higher and higher.
Yeah.
You had a few years ago where people couldn't argue it, and now or they could argue it, but there really wasn't much evidence. To now we've gone to. Okay, there's piles of evidence at this point.
Right.
Actually, where it is concerning to where multi-billion-dollar companies are even having to change things because of that said reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's kind of bring the conversation a little bit back to Chad, what you were saying, and you were saying, wildlife, and you also brought up too, like the polar ice caps are melting, and polar bears, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of ecological stuff that's happening as well. So next kind of question is now focusing on that like ecological animal life.
Yeah.
What do you think is kind of going on there?
I feel like this affects the polar bears.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely, because I feel like they're animals that survive in cold weather.
Right.
And so when those ice caps are melting, then it's almost like their homes are being destroyed, and it's the population of them are decreasing because of this.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's what's kind of sad too, is that. Like imagine somebody's like taking your home away from you,
yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
or just like your house like just melting or catching on fire right away. So,
right.
So that's what I kind of see going on.
Yeah. Anything to add?
No, I think you touched. I mean, it's true. I mean, unfortunately, it's just one of those things we didn't notice it early enough, and now we're trying to take action.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a while to see progress.
What if I told you guys that it's not just the polar bears? What if I said that there's species, let's just say, because we're local to California, let's just say
the ocean is actually having a problem with that right now.
Right. Well, let's just say that there's a paper I read a few weeks, so I'm going to use this example, but let's just say that there's a species of dolphin off the coast of Baja California, right? So down in Mexico, that are moving up north to the North Pole. What do you guys think about that?
Probably because they were down south, and that's where their natural waters are, and now it's changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah, I agree with that.
So what's happening is there's a paper I actually read not too long ago for marine bio class, and it was really interesting because it's the species of bottlenose dolphin that the sea surface temperature, right? Because what happens is the ocean is a huge sink for carbon dioxide.
Yep.
And not only that, but just for the heat itself. So what happens is the sea surface. The surface sea water, right, is getting warmed up at an alarming rate. And so now these animals, right? Yeah. Exactly. Well, these dolphins are now, closer to the equator anyway, so it's a more warmer habitat. So their southern limit is getting northward shifted. That's the name of the thing. It's getting north pole shifted. So now they have to live closer and closer to the North Pole. So we're losing speciation really all over the world because more things are going north and south to go to those colder places.
Yeah.
and we're losing, wildlife, seafood around here.
It's affecting their migration
Right.
routes. Their patterns are now shifting, and the oceanographers and the marine biologists, it gets harder to track certain species because they're having to migrate, and they're migrating to new places that they kind of shouldn't be at.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's the same thing's kind of happening for birds as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, I'm not well versed in that, but I'm sure that must be happening because,
Definitely.
like you said, it's, not the same environment. They got to move somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. But I kind of want to touch on that for a second. And the other thing is kind of a weird question, but do you guys like seafood?
Not a fan.
Not a fan?
Yeah.
Not a fan?
I like blue crab.
Okay.
I'll eat certain fish. My friend cooks it a certain way that I like it.
All right.
But
do you guys like eating mussels ever or anything?
I don't mind clam.
Okay.
Clam can be pretty good.
You're no-go on that one?
No go.
Okay.
That's it.
You never had a nice clam with some butter on it.
I'm gonna have to stick with my my Aquapana water right here.
This is the only water life Chad knows.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, kind of an interesting point on that part is, so there's we talked about sea surface temperature rising and everything like that, and how the oceans is sink. It's also a sink for carbon dioxide, like I said earlier. And so there's a chemical process that's happening, something that we've learned back in high school, bio, right? Kind of related to photosynthesis and all that, right?
Yeah.
So one of those different equations. And what's crazy is that the ocean is actually getting more acidic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys heard about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's happening here off the coast of California, Oregon, Seattle, all that stuff is all these like bivalves, right? So like clams, mussels, all these different things that use a calcification process to harden their shells, right? Well, this acidification is actually inhibiting that calcification, which means that now their shells are softer, they're not hardening. So what happens is they die. So that's hurting our seafood industry and stuff like that, which hurts us because we don't get to eat that good food.
That's why that's why prices are jacked up at Costco, dude.
Yeah.
The lobster there is more expensive than it was before, I can tell you that.
Yeah, so there's all these kind of different processes that are all a result from, global warming and all that stuff. So that's something interesting that I hope that we covered. I know not super in detail, but we were able to have a little conversation, and I hope that starts something, a conversation with the audience, and hopefully that we can just bring a little bit more awareness to this.
Even if it's comments below, I mean.
Yeah, please let us know.
Throw your comments down below, or message us on Instagram, social media.
Yeah,
we'd love to
You'll get one of us to talk back to you. If it's me, sorry.
Yeah,
you get a lot of sarcasm back.
Yeah, so if you see a reply from him, don't.
Just ignore it. Yeah. Just no, it's not us. It's me.
Oh my god. Well, before we go to our break, let's talk about one more topic.
Okay.
And that's pollution.
Yes.
So I know it's not super related to global warming, but I wanted to talk about pollution today as well. So, pollution. Again, just kind of broad thoughts from you guys.
I think we see it like when people say pollution, the first thing that people think of are cars, because I feel like that's one of the number one things in our environment that's really killing it.
Are you talking about like air pollution?
Like air pollution,
Okay.
Yeah. So that being like gasoline, and we see this. We see like a drastic shift from gasoline to electric cars, even nowadays.
Tesla.
Yeah, Tesla's or even Toyota and their
hybrid.
Their hybrid cars, or Honda. A lot of these car manufacturers are coming out with these like hybrid vehicles or just electric vehicles in general. Yeah, and so certainly an electric vehicle is much easier to come across than it was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was unheard of a few years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, now kind of touching on your topic about the cars. Nowadays, you got Tesla. Porsche has a supercar that's it's hybrid, but it's it's still half electric.
Everyone almost has their hybrid. Like
they have a Formula One version.
And what's insane is that a lot of these places out in public are starting to come out with some like public charging stations.
A lot of them.
It's getting more ubiquitous almost. You know what I mean?
About a year or two ago, it would take hours to charge. Now they say it takes 15 to 45 minutes.
It's crazy.
Tops.
Definitely.
Jaguar has the E-Type, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I saw this on the news, or not a news, on a commercial. Mustang.
Really?
No way.
Ford has come out with an all-electric Mustang. That's
kind of
You know what's
surprising.
funny? You know what's funny is actually there have been rumors spread around the internet saying that Apple's trying to like develop their own
Car?
Apple,
Yeah,
the
I
car,
saw that,
So
yeah.
they're gonna try to fight Google on this.
There's a meme I saw on the internet of someone said, "Oh yeah, Apple Car, yeah, it's coming out," and then they say wheels sold separately, steering wheel sold separately,
And no windows.
No
right?
windows, yeah, no windows.
It's a build-it-yourself car.
Yeah.
It's a kit car. At that
And you gotta
point.
get all the,
you have to get everything.
all the adapters.
Yeah, all the adapters. No, your keys will not work. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean,
Your keys.
jumping back, that's the number one thing I think of when someone says air pollution or pollution in general is cars.
Yeah, right.
For me, it's the same thing, but at the same time, I also see. Here's the thing: you'll see, yes, all these companies are coming out with new electric cars. I mean, just a heads up, you guys, there will be a car episode eventually. Me, Daniel, and for a fact, Marco.
Yeah.
We are all huge car guys, so I want to cover this. Shows in progress.
I don't know anything about cars, and that's sad.
Okay,
but that's
but
okay.
definitely,
you know a little bit. You know a little bit.
I know.
If
but
I'll say one thing. I'll say one thing right now. Definitely, Marco Ramici will definitely.
he'll be defending the
He'll be
Fiat.
defending the
anytime.
Fiat.
And I will be
Alfa
ripping
Romeo.
on Alpha. I'll be ripping on the Alphas. But the thing is with cars, there is always going to be a need, I think, for gasoline.
Yeah.
There are a few trucks out now. Tesla has their truck that will be coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, with all electric cars, you have instant torque.
Right.
So, but with a gasoline powered car, you don't have that instant torque on the dot unless we're talking supercars.
True.
And
Sure.
we're talking $1 million above cars.
So
But
yeah, no, go.
sorry, but to go back to the pollution, the cars release a lot of CO2 or carbon monoxide at that point.
Yeah. Oh, carbon monoxide. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
CO2. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's all coming from exhaust, and we live in SoCal, so LA is known for the amount of carbon monoxide put out by cars, not just from factories. I mean, you look up the top reasons of why there's so much carbon monoxide in LA. It goes factories, cars, something. I mean, not exactly in that order, but you get the
Right.
point. But it is something that, unfortunately, not all cars are going to be electric. I don't think, at least not in our life. I mean, by the end of our lifetime, I do think that there will be a self-driving car. For now, I will not.
Yeah.
I refuse.
Well, the other thing too is that and coming from an electrochemical kind of standpoint is to make electricity, to power electricity, that also takes up a lot of power.
Definitely.
And produces a certain amount of carbon dioxide as well. I was taking this Chem 2 years ago, and it blew my mind to learn that to really power all these electric cars, you may be getting close to the same amount of pollution that you're creating by just having gas.
Yeah.
Because all these
You're maybe
these
saving
power
a little
plants,
bit.
these
Right.
these power plants that are like polluting into our air.
Yeah, and even
Not
if you
only
go
that.
nuclear fission, which is hopefully
There will not be a nuclear powered car.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Sorry,
gonna be
Batman
fine.
fans. Trust me, I want it just as much as you do,
Yeah.
but it's not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
There's a reason why they don't put nuclear inside
Yeah,
of
I mean-
vehicle.
But I mean, that's what's crazy, and the last kind of thing is just I don't know. But anyway, for me, when I think of pollution, I immediately think of plastic pollution, and
Turtles.
so this is kind of where we'll talk about our last topic before we go to break. But plastic pollution. Are you guys familiar with the Great Pacific Garbage Patch?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
It's massive.
absolutely awful.
It's terrible.
Massive.
Yeah.
terrible.
So I mean, it breaks my heart to see it, and what can we really do?
Stop chucking your
Even
trash
us,
in the
right,
ocean.
right now,
Yeah.
we're not helping right now by having plastic water bottles, right? But I know the three of us have.
I carry a hydro flask or a
Yeah,
plastic.
hydro flask.
yeah.
That's what we.
A plastic reusable. I mean, it's a massive, 32-ounce water bottle that's
Yeah.
reusable. I just stick
Yeah.
it in the dishwasher. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even if you do don't have a choice but to use something like this.
You could just refill it.
Be sure to recycle it.
Right.
And don't throw it in the
Get your
landfill.
extra 5 cents, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for sure too, right? So, I mean, I think that there's definitely things that we need to do better. Some might argue that it might, people say it's like the biggest thing that we're facing in the world, right? And others might argue, well, like, there's so many other things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we can't refute that it is, no matter what, in the top 5, one of the biggest,
It is.
global warming and then pollution.
Yeah.
We can't have our beaches dirty. We can't have our animals, whether it be on land or sea, getting choked by the, the soda rings or whatever it may be. And there's definitely little things that we can be doing. Like, we have the power, even if it's just not as fast or something like that.
Yeah.
Even when you think, oh, that's so stupid, like you're not really contributing.
What's interesting is there's been a huge increase in companies like Hydro Flask and stuff like that, and that's because people have noticed. And you guys go to restaurants or drive-thrus, it's all paper straws. I know Starbucks, I go there a lot for my mom, and they're paper straws.
Yeah.
Or even I remember a few years back, Disney stopped offering lids and straws because they wanted to cut back on their amount of plastic that was wasteful. So we see that happen all around this world, and how
there's definitely been a change.
There's different changes that we can take to help make this better, and so that this pollution doesn't get worse.
Before we go to break, I got one last question for you guys.
Yep. You
think you guys it'll happen in the next few years that we'll see a change, a change in the wildlife and all that?
Wildlife in the means of like a big dramatic change in the sense of it?
Any sort of change, doesn't matter. I think it'll be a little bit,
that's
but
a little hard.
it's going to take a long time for it to be a major change.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, personally, I think that it's going to be a little faster than we think, just because already there's been, again, going back to the initial topic of species doing a poleward shift, whether that be north or south.
Yeah.
So I think that there's going to be changes faster than we anticipate.
We don't know.
But either way,
Time will tell.
Time will tell. Before we go to break, one more thing is I have an announcement. I'll announce it again later. But this is the first time I think we've talked about it in the group chat. But have you guys heard of 4Ocean? The brand, the company 4Ocean.
I remember you mentioned it in the group chat, and I know how it works.
So do you want to go more into detail?
Yeah.
Before we go to break.
The company 4Ocean is, I believe, a nonprofit company, and what they
it is.
Yeah, right. So what they do is, I think it was invented by two friends.
Yeah.
And they sell different things. Sometimes it's bracelets. Sometimes it's like face. They just did face masks that are pretty cool. I don't have one yet, but I think I'm gonna get one. And they have these products, and a percentage of that product, the percentage of the income goes into picking up trash and putting up institutions. So I know there's one of them like in India. I know there's one in Guatemala, which is great because I have family over there. And they're doing all these things to clean up the beaches and teach people and teach the communities to stop throwing things in the water and the all these different things, how to recycle. And they're cleaning up these things and recycling them, and that's really cool. So recently, they released a program for people like us to be able to do some affiliate marketing. So essentially what that means is we would partner with them. We'll get our own code that we can distribute it to you guys, the audience. You guys can then buy, whether it be a Hydro Flask, whether it be a bracelet, whether it be whatever it may be, and a small portion will go to us, and the small portion will go to them, and then from that, they're gonna put it to continue their project, their program. What do you guys think about that?
I love that. That's a great idea.
It's a good idea.
I think it funds us a little bit to get this equipment in the studio, keep the lights running.
It's not cheap.
But I think another thing, and I don't know if we've really talked about this, but one thing I really want to do is I want to start doing projects with nonprofits and do philanthropic stuff. So I would love to partner with the Red Cross and get money from the audience, and then just all of that goes to whatever we're working with at that time.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't see any of that, because I think that as the intelligent world, we should really be helping out our community, not just talking about helping out. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think we should do it?
I say we do it.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
Yeah. So, keep an eye out on that. Keep an eye out on 4Ocean. We already did the application, but we're still waiting to hear back. I did that a month ago, so hopefully they'll consider us to do it.
Cross our fingers, hoping.
Yeah, hopefully. But with that being said, any last words, guys?
Honestly, I think it might be break time right now.
Might be break time.
Thank you guys so much for being part of this episode, and when we come back, we will be with Chris. All right? So, without further ado, here is Cali by Wataboi. Welcome back from the break. As you can tell, we've allowed everyone else to kind of go for today, and now Chris has joined us. So for the last little bit of the show, let's talk about this, Chris. So again, at the beginning of the episode, we talked about how we're not experts in any of this. And what really is the point of this show is to kind of discuss global warming and ocean acidification and climate change and ocean pollution. So a whole bunch of different subjects, but as if you were picking someone off the street, right? So like that Jimmy Kimmel segment, right, where you kind of go in LA and Hollywood. So that type of thing. So we're not experts. We're just kind of discussing this. So I'm gonna throw it to you, and I know that I have a whole bunch of bullet points here, but let's start firstly of what do you think about climate change in general? And I know that's a huge question to ask you, but let's just kind of open the discussion with you from there.
Yeah, I think that in my opinion, I think there needs to be a proper balance. You know, there are a lot of issues in the world, obviously climate change being a fairly big thing. But I think solely focusing on climate change only tends to neglect some of the other most important things, you know? So you could list down the myriad of different things, people being supported in education, making sure they're getting the proper education, making sure people actually have a home, not homeless on the street. So there are a lot of different things that kind of need to, within society, put attention on. So I think there's no denying, you know, the fact that there are some changes in the world. A lot of scientists do say it is due to us. And I also think there's some scientists that say, okay, there is definitely an influence by us, but I think that it's also a natural, just Earth event that kind of takes place. Personally, I can't give you, okay, it's 100% this or it's 100% that, because I just am not educated enough in the space to give you like a fully opinionated thing. Regardless though, I think it's important for us to at least try to scale back on some of the stuff. There's zero doubt that there are a lot of daily habits that we all do that are not good for the earth. You know, me having the habit of, okay, let me go make a sandwich, grabbing a one-time use plastic bag, putting it in, and then after a couple hours later, throwing in the trash. To me, I think there's better ways we could do it. Tupperware, just these little things that are seemingly insignificant that could definitely help. I'm sure we can kind of get into it a little bit more, but that's kind of on a surface level, my thoughts on the whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. So I think we kind of started turning from climate change into, and I think you're right? There's a whole bunch of different issues and we kind of balance each one. And you talked on one thing, which was really interesting to me. And again, I think that's why this episode is interesting in the fact that, you know, none of us are experts again. And what is it? You know, is there something that's natural to this, or is there something that's man-made? And so I won't show a graph because this is not a lecture, but I mean, there is global warming is a natural thing, right? As CO2 gets emitted through photosynthesis, whatever the things are, right? Natural processes, CO2 is emitted, and you know that is a greenhouse gas, and you know the whole thing happens. But you know, it's been a skyrocketing since the late 19th century, probably even earlier, late 18th century, of just huge increase. There's a graph again that I won't show, but it shows this like a gradual increase and then just boom, you know, and it's crazy to think that it's because of us. So that's one interesting thing. But let's go on to a subject that you kind of brought up at the end here, which was pollution. And to me, there's something very telling of what's going on in the world right now. And that's the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if you remember, but back, it was either junior or senior year. That's when I found out about it for the first time. So pretty late, you know. We should have been more inclined to what was going on. But you know, I felt really bad. It was awful. The things I was seeing. I mean, just animals just choking, sea turtles with, you know, the garbage and the plastic can thing. You know, it's awful. So I decided at that point I was kind of a leader in choir, as you know, and I decided that I should talked to NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Agency, and unfortunately, they responded that there was nothing that we could really do. I thought maybe we could do a fundraiser or something, but there was just nothing that we could really do at the moment, which is very disheartening, right? It's very sad. But as we continue going and it keeps getting bigger, it's just absolutely awful. So let me go ahead and define it. I know I'm talking a little bit, but let me go ahead and define it. So the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is the greatest, it's the biggest mass offshore accumulation of plastic and other trash in the ocean. It's absolutely awful. It's actually made up of two different smaller garbage patches that kind of, because of currents, kind of gyrate together to become this bigger one. But it's made up of the western garbage patch that's off the coast of Japan, and the eastern garbage patch that is off the coast, between Hawaii and California. So, and again, that current kind of takes it around and accumulates it and amalgamates it together. So here's the thing. What do you think we can do? Is there anything that we can it's so big now that I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I'm definitely a person that doesn't think, oh no, it's over, put our hands up and just like, we're screwed. No, There's always something we can do. So I'm quite surprised that NOAA gave that response to you.
Yeah.
Because I personally, so I kind of want to touch on two things. The first one, I think finding a way to eliminate it or find ways of kind of reducing that, it's definitely a huge thing that should be handled. Companies like 4Ocean is a fantastic example of that for anybody who's not familiar. Basically what they do, they actually collect these plastic bottles, not necessarily from the Great Ocean Patch, but basically from the remnants that are left on beaches and everything that will eventually probably find their way to the Great Ocean Patch, I believe is what the term used for it.
Yeah.
So that's a great example. Personally, I'm very business oriented and stuff like that. I've always said, okay, how can I, because there's so much plastic there. Okay, how can we utilize that plastic that is there to reuse something else? The difficult part, because it's just free resources, right?
Right.
It would actually be good if we collected it for the environment, and also it's free resources. The problem lies though in the collection of it. It's just so difficult. Mm-hmm. So I think that if we can create a way to collect it and then reuse it somewhere else, that would be fantastic. So that's kind of, okay, solution number one, I'd say.
Right.
Finding ways to maybe collect it and then use it from there. Mm-hmm. But the problem is with that, that's at the end of the cycle, right? So it's not necessarily proactive, it's rather reactive. Okay, so reactive approach. Now let's come, because I think both of these can be done in tandem. Now let's come to the beginning. Okay, how can we stop this from happening? Because we could keep being reactive, but it's just going to be reactive and not really solve.
You're not solving the problem. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So if I were NOAA and you approach me, I'd say, hey, the best thing you can do is educate people on the situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Because unless it's like, okay, when you're trying to solve a problem, no matter what it is, the very first step in solving is identifying it's a problem.
Right.
If people aren't aware of it, how can they possibly start making a change?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I definitely think that the awareness is getting more and more, but I can guarantee you probably more than half the world still doesn't know about it.
That's the whole purpose of talking about it today, right? Again, the purpose is none of us are experts, but if we can broach the subject, then it might spark conversations in someone, whoever is out there listening, but they'll start talking about it. But actually, I wanted to bring something really cool because you touched on something, and that's the whole purpose of this episode. Well, it's two things. 4Ocean is a company that I've kind of looked at for a while now as something being really cool. My sister loves getting the bracelets from them. You're right. It's like $5 or something, whatever that might be. But a certain percentage of that goes to helping clean up the ocean. I've been following them for a few months now on Instagram, and the work they're doing is really, really cool. And recently, I learned of a program that they have that involves people like us to be able to kind of do affiliate marketing. So essentially what that means is we get a code for the show, which then we can give out to our audience. You guys will be able to purchase whatever of the myriad products that they provide. And then some of that will go to us. Some of that will go to them. And even then a portion of that will go to cleaning the ocean. Mm-hmm. We applied for that program a few weeks ago and we're hoping to hear back soon, but we wanted to announce that as a project that we're hoping to do, because again, not only is this a mission statement, the mission statement of talking about things in society, but I think, and Chris, I think you and I, we've talked about this, is we want to be doing good for our community at the same time that we're trying to do good by just talking.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping that over the next few months that we can kind of enroll in different fundraising programs, whether it be for Ocean, whether it just be collecting money for the Red Cross, whatever it might be, that we can actually collect money and donate completely, where we don't get anything, right? Because we're just trying to do good in our community. So I wanted to take this opportunity to say that, because I think this is the perfect episode to say that, right? We're not only are we talking about something that we need to change, something that we need to kind of advocate for, but that's something that we want to do too. So what are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree with it. Obviously, I know we've chatted about it slightly in the past. I think it's a great thing. And that's definitely a positive thing that we can do that's reactive. Not that it's a bad thing, but it is reactive. So I think that, to me, fantastic. But what I really hope, and I know as of right now, we don't have millions and millions of people listening or watching, but my hope is that people can listen to this and just become aware of the problem. Yeah. Realize, oh my goodness, where I'm using 10 plastic bags that most likely will end up in the ocean, I could just buy one Tupperware and I can just reuse it over and over and over. And look, I'll put my hands up and be, sometimes the bad habits of the past still come to get me now. But what are ways that we can just limit?
Right.
Okay, because simply by buying like one Tupperware that you put your sandwich in or whatever it is, you could save depending on how many you use, hundreds of Ziploc bags per year, right? So the thing is, imagine millions of people doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
And even with the disposable masks too, like that's a huge thing that they're seeing so many in the ocean.
I mean, I've already seen on the beach, it's absolutely awful.
It's ridiculous.
It's like one thing you have to balance, right? Keeping everyone safe in the community, and obviously wearing a mask helps that. But at the same time, and I think at the bottom line too is so I didn't mean to diverge from what you were saying, but I think a big part of this is people need to start listening and caring about this, because how many times have we said, who cares, right? Whatever, I'm not going to deal with it. And that's a thought that everyone has, right? And it's whether it be throwing a piece of gum out the window of your car, whether it be, littering is obviously helping this, accumulation of trash and garbage and all this stuff. So it's like people need to start caring about this and listening and being educated, right? Like you're saying, but whether it be just this, a Tupperware or something like this, so that you eliminate plastic water bottles, right? Of course, making these things also produces carbon and all that stuff too, but I don't know the numbers personally, but I'm sure that this would save a lot more than, the production and then the waste of so many. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, anything else to add, Chris, before we kind of jump off to another topic?
I think we kind of covered it. Just for anybody listening, what I would strongly advise, look in your life and realize, okay, where am I just doing that? And I'm not the biggest green thumb, all of that sort of stuff. And, save the world's burning. Look, obviously it's an important topic, but we also have to be realistic. As I said before, what are some of the other things too? Right. So instead of taking, in my opinion, not too educated on the subject, instead of taking your whole focus and doing that, just look at small things. And then from there, try to fix from there. And I think if everyone just did this much work.
Because everyone has the power to make a change, even when you don't think you do.
That's the crazy part. Right? And that's, like I said in the beginning, when you asked, is there anything we can do? Of course there's something we can do. I mean, literally, Elon Musk is sending people to Mars. He's colonizing Mars. And you're telling me I can't look at how many plastic bags I'm using and just try to reduce it? Come on, really?
Right? There we go. That's why we're friends, buddy. Because
Absolutely.
So, kind of full circling. Obviously, we kind of talked with the entire group, and now with you, we talked about pollution. We talked about pollution before. As we kind of wrap up the show, let's kind of bring it back to that global warming thing. And there's one thing that I actually want to talk about with you, especially because you kind of live on the coast, right? So, question for you: do you like shellfish? Do you like eating shellfish?
Yeah, it's not like I eat it super often, but yes, I do like shellfish.
De vez en cuando, right? Every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Just in your Spanish right there. The shellfish industry is getting hit hard because of something called ocean acidification. So part of something like global warming, right, is is excess CO2 in the atmosphere. But what happens to that CO2? Well, as we said earlier in the show, and I've already explained this, but it gets absorbed by the ocean. Ocean is the biggest sink for carbon dioxide, anywhere else. So it absorbs that stuff, and especially the colder northern, the polar environments, they suck up even more. So we'll get there in a second. But the ocean is getting more acidic, sorry, because CO2 is getting absorbed, and now it's going through chemical processes that we're all familiar with from high school and biology and chemistry. And what's going on? Well, hydrogen ions, right? These protons are actually getting released, and that's making it more acidic. That's lowering the pH. And so what does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with shellfish? Well, it's actually hurting the calcification process of bivalve shells, so mussels and all that type of stuff that you would want to eat, right? Well, now a lot of them are dying because their shells aren't hard enough, calcified enough to be able to survive. So they die, and now the shellfish industry is getting hit pretty hard. And now what does that mean for the consumers? It means less available product for us and higher costs for something that, it's a really good snack. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was about to ask, okay, what are some things we can do to fix that?
Yeah, well, one thing obviously is trying to reduce our carbon footprint on the earth, because again, that's a lot of stuff that's getting absorbed. The other thing that's taking place right now is, really, I was going to say maybe doing seasonal catches, right? But the problem with that is it changes a little bit every year, and especially when you introduce an El Nino situation or something like that, it kind of very much changes the ocean chemistry and weather in the water. So what's being done right now is they're actually trying to get some at the baby stage, we'll say, and raise them in tanks, and then try to kind of clean the water as much as possible to make them grow there. So it's almost like it's farming. Instead of farming it in the ocean, how they usually were doing it, they have to farm it now in tanks. So that's to answer your question, but I want to go ahead and continue your thoughts, please.
Well, I'm curious to hear though, because obviously we can farm in tanks, but like my thing is, okay, the natural environment, how do we ensure, obviously you said reduce the carbon footprint, okay? The thing is that what exactly action can we take to do that? Or is it even something like really making sure we plant a lot more trees, just, this is gonna sound ridiculous, but like everywhere. Well, try to go ahead and reduce that amount of CO2 that's being emitted into the oceans eventually.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a big part of it. Again, I'm no expert, but based on my classes and I already talked about why I'm considered the faux expert for this video, but really trees would definitely help a lot. And again, places like Los Angeles or like Great Britain, right, where there's a lot less tree population, or even cutting down the Amazon, which is, oh my gosh, to me, it's like the dumbest thing, right? You're reducing all these trees that could potentially help out this crisis. However, the ocean will continue to be the largest sink. So I think no matter what really has to happen, and unfortunately, I'm just not well versed enough to talk about this, but I'm not sure exactly. I'm sure that there might be some things, but it's not as easy to be like, oh, well, let's dump some chemical, right? That's a buffer to raise the pH of the ocean, because at that point now you're introducing more problems into the, so that could be potentially something where your mind could go. But then it's like, well, all these unanswered questions of putting in a buffer to raise the pH, and now how is that going to affect wildlife? So to answer your question really is, I don't know. I think I have to be more well-versed. I think all of us, again, back to the education point, is what can we do in supporting our scientists to help fix these issues, and the younger generation learning so that maybe they can become our future generation of scientists to help this issue. But if we don't do anything, as we keep going, it's going to get worse and worse to the point where we might not have anything to fix. So it's good to talk about it now.
I mean, it's just so interesting, because even as you bring up, okay, change the pH level, because you do that, and then we don't even realize, okay, by changing the pH level by this much, how many other implications that has,
Right.
So even as you look, okay, if there's something we can't change anymore, okay, so what is the chain effect of that? So I think personally, I'm not an expert, but I do believe one of the biggest industries over the next 20 to 50 years will be the transportation industry. Okay, you see people like Elon Musk creating the Boring Company, right? We're talking about like mass amounts of people like going at light speed, but I'm sure, at least I'd hope, probably should look more, it has a little bit less emissions than something like driving a car from LA to SF.
Yeah, clean energy is hopefully what the solution would be.
Exactly. So I think that could be a huge thing, because people will say, okay, stop traveling, stop doing this. But here's the thing too, we need to be realistic. Are you telling me that, yes, of course, there's zero doubt taking 3 flights per year instead of 15 dramatically decreases, of course, but it's not like majority of the people are taking a ton of flights. It's a very select few that actually are doing this much. So how can we allow people to live their lives while actually trying to reduce that carbon footprint too, you know? So I think it's a very interesting thing that, as I said, over the next 20 to 50 years, will be a very booming industry that a lot of people will flock towards.
Yeah, no, super well said. And I hope, again, it's important to be realistic and still try to help the environment, because this is the planet that we have. So we got to help out as much as we can. And like you said,
Absolutely.
the little things, everyone has power. So the little things we got to change. But with that, I thank you so much, Chris. We've been talking not only for a good few minutes here, but we had the first part of the episode as well. So hopefully we'll be able to continue our mission statement in helping educate people, or at least starting a conversation. And look out for us, for Ocean, hopefully, if we end up getting that code soon, and different, missions that we're going to start having pretty soon. I'm really excited for all the philanthropic kind of ideas that we have. So it's looking like a good future.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris. To everyone, thank you so much for listening to The Intelligent World. Make sure that you're subscribing on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram, and keep your eyes out for all the amount of content that we're going to be posting. I know it's been a while since you last saw us have a full-length video, but we've been sitting on a lot of content. It's just we're all college students, so we'll get there soon enough. Thank you so much. Keep listening to us. Keep supporting us. You're listening to The Intelligent World.